Hello, everyone. This is the 152nd episode of the Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and the Soccer Nostalgia blog. Unfortunately, Mr. Paul Whittle from the 1888 letter blog could not make it this time. For this episode, I interview German journalist Mr. Achim Schregle and German football fan Mr. Torge as we discuss the matches of the West Germany national team during the 1982-83 season. Welcome to both of you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
Can you each introduce yourselves and your trajectory into football?
54 years old, living in Munich, Bavaria. Ardent Bayern Munich supporter. Sorry, Torge. Crazy for the game since I think the age of 7 or 8 years old. Now I'm working as a journalist, as you said, although I'm not deep into the football or soccer business, but I'm following the game pretty intensely. Just to make it sure, after the 1986 World Cup eighth final against Morocco, I didn't miss a single Germany game at any World Cup or European Championship until the World Cup in Qatar, which I boycotted. And now I'm back in track again. I'm following the German national team nearly as intensely as I did the decades before.
Okay, I'm 50 years old, and I was a die-hard fan, football fan during the 80s. This went until 1992, I think, and then I lost interest, honestly. But the 80s were, I don't know, I grew up in quite a rural area in Germany, and what else could you do than playing football and following the Bundesliga and, of course, the big international tournaments. Yeah. So these were highlights, and I never lost those memories about the 80s football. And I'm a Werder Bremen fan, not Bayern Munich, because I grew up in the very north. I think my first live Bundesliga match was in 1984. Must have been Werder versus HSV, 5-2 for Werder at home.
Classic in the north.
Yeah, North Derby. North Classic, yeah.
The first game I watched in the stadium without my dad at the age of 16, because I grew up also in a very rural area, was the last game of the 85-86 season when Bayern played Mönchengladbach at home, beat them 6-0, and Bremen lost 2-1 in Stuttgart.
Okay.
And Bayern won the Bundesliga on the very last day of the season. This is a memory I'll never forget, just because the first game without my dad and then such a highlight.
Let's get to the national team. So this is the fall of 1982, following the World Cup final where West Germany lost to Italy in Spain. What was the state of the West German national team at this point following the World Cup?
Germany were runners-up in the final, second in the world. But paradoxically, the national team was incredibly unpopular at the time. The events of the 82 World Cup with the loss to Algeria, the so-called shame of Gijon, again, the game against Austria when Germany won 1-0. And after 10 minutes, both teams ceased playing. The events around the semi-final against France, where Schumacher injured Battiston very seriously. The team wasn't very popular at the time. They seemed to be, these rich kids having lost ground and touched to the people. So the start of the 82-83 season was really very much at the bottom. After the World Cup, a player like Paul Breitner had retired from the national team. I remember the first game after the World Cup was 0-0 against Belgium at Munich at the Olympic Stadium. Belgium, a very strong side at the time. And I think it was a 0-0 draw, and I think there were just around 20,000 people at the Olympiastadion in Munich. So the start was really a very bad one. And the expectations for the qualification for the 84 European Championship to come wasn't a very high one.
As Akim explained, the team was unpopular. So they were unpopular as far as outside of Germany, but within Germany as well, was that how the team was looked upon?
Absolutely, I think. It was a paradox because, they were second in the World Cup 82, which is still a huge achievement. Yeah. by any means. But now, I don't know, the way they acted in Spain and the way, of course, the press presented the team was quite negative. I can remember things like, I think Paul Breitner shaved his beard now for some advert, and he got like 100,000 marks. Or was it charity? Didn't he earn?
It was charity, yeah.
Okay. I can remember that it was reported that Gillette paid him like 100,000, and especially Paul Breitner, who always was like talking like a socialist or communist, and at the same time he earned millions at Real Madrid. So it wasn't really, I don't know, it wasn't really honest. And honestly, what I think, Paul Breitner was one reason why the image of the national team wasn't the best. Many people didn't like him. Many people simply didn't like him. It was something else with Rummenigge. Rummenigge was very, very popular, not only in Germany, but worldwide, I guess. Even Werder fans admired his skills. But people like Paul Breitner, I don't know, they were unpopular. He was the leader of this team, of the 1982 team. Another reason why the team itself was unpopular. Of course, the head coach, Derval, he wasn't a leader at all. He had the team only on the long leash. The whole preparation for this World Cup was a joke at Schluchsee.
Schluchsee.
Yeah, they called it Schluchsee because there were alcohol abuse and gambling. And so the whole preparation was very unprofessional. One of the things when Horst Rubesch was asked decades later what he regrets most in his career, he said it was the amateurish preparation for the World Cup in 1982. So if they had prepared properly, like physically properly, and had acted as a team and not as single groups, like there was a Bayern Munich group, a block with Paul Breitner and Rummenigge and Dremmler, and then maybe a Cologne block and so on. I don't know, there would have been more possible.
The thing was they had run through the qualification 8 matches, 8 victories, conceded only 3 goals. Even before the tournament had started, the expectation was Germany will win this World Cup. The first game against Algeria was widely considered a 5 or 6 goals victory.
Yeah.
And then they lost 2-1. So there was fire on the boat.
Yeah, the second match was then Chile, I guess, 4-1.
Yes.
That was something like redemption. But yeah, then Austria, the shame of Gijon or whatever you call it, this scandal match. I don't know. They were European champions. As you said, they didn't lose a single qualification match. And then everybody expected them to shine. But the first match, yeah, absolutely right.
I mean, the second round was okay. It was 0-0 against England and the 2-1 victory against Spain. I do not completely agree with you because I think the team, if they hadn't been completely fit, they wouldn't have been able to make it 120 minutes against France, coming back from a 1-3 in overtime. Mentally, they was somehow, but it was, as you said, a preparation before a tournament is not only about physical things, it's also about building a group. And building a group on this aspect, Derval completely was a failure.
Most probably, yeah.
Well, and then all the negative press. I mean, after the Battiston incident, the Germans were once again were regarded as the villains, as the tanks, as all these old cliches from the war came up again worldwide.
Yeah.
A few weeks after the World Cup, there was a game in New York, a world selection.
Oh yes, a FIFA UNICEF match. Yeah.
And I remember in New York, Schumacher was given a very, very hard welcome. They were on terms of moral and stuff like that, they were on the bottom at the beginning of the 82-83 season.
Just a year earlier, Joop Derval seemed like he could do no wrong. So how was he viewed now by the public?
Get him out.
He wasn't popular anymore. And he was too soft.
The image was that Breitner and Rummenigge, they were running the team and Joop Derval had no authority over them. Is that true?
Well, before the 82 World Cup, there was this thing they had lost Bernd Schuster. There was a friendly against Brazil in Stuttgart. And after that game, there was a party at Hansi Müller's private house. And Schuster didn't show up there. And after that, he was kicked out of the team. And I think after that, Schuster was forever declined playing for Germany. Later it came out it was all a big misunderstanding, but It was typical for the DFB, for the German association. The guys running the association at that time considered them to be top of the world and the most important people in German football. And the players were like little soldiers that had to follow them. That was the problem, I think, in the World Cup or after the World Cup also, with leadership of the association, leadership of the team, treating their players like little idiots, as they had tried before the 74 World Cup, when players threatened to leave the camp if they weren't paid properly. But somehow in the mind of the officials, nothing had changed. This was the basic of the view that people had on the team. The association wasn't popular, the leading figures weren't popular, and so wasn't the team.
As bossy as these, like the president Neuberger was, coaches like Helmut Schön and Jupp Derwal, they were too soft. I mean, effectively, Germany won the World Cup in 1974 because at some stage, Beckenbauer said, now it's over. Now I say what is going on and who's going to play. And Schön was basically out. He took over leadership. And the same happened somehow with Derwal, because I think Breitner had more influence on the team than Derwal at some stage.
You know what was the thing about Breitner? He was backed by the papers, especially by Bild.
Yeah, you're right.
It was Bild who had written him back into the team, because Derwal had taken over after the 78 World Cup. For 2.5 years, the team was unbeaten. They were complete. And then there was in 80-81, there was this Mundialito, this special World Cup in Uruguay, when Germany lost to Brazil and to Argentina. And after that, the Bild started a campaign to bring Breitner back on the team. And Breitner was a very dominant figure, and he always was sure of the most important paper in the country standing behind him.
Makes sense. That makes sense, yeah.
That was the thing.
Speaking of Breitner, what were the discussions now regarding how the team would cope without Breitner, who was seen as their leader, despite his unpopularity, as you mentioned earlier?
You had Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, who was on the top of his abilities at the time. You had a very dominant figure in goal like Toni Schumacher. And I think it was pretty clear that the team should be built around them, the team for the 84 European Championship.
Basically, it was a relief for the team that Breitner left.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I always thought he was a bit overrated as a player. That might be my personal opinion, but especially in 1982, he was quite old and he was always more a physical player than like a brilliant player.
Most of the 82-83 season, he was injured, so he was really at the end of his career. He wasn't that couldn't be the leading figure anymore. He could have been in the years before.
So, but if you're talking big like Breitner, you have to back it up on the field. You cannot just talk big and say that's the direction, and on the pitch you simply are like average.
Yeah,
that's what young footballers always quickly realize. Yeah? They think, why is this old chappy talking? And why does he play worse than I do?
On the other side, during this infamous camp at Schluchsee, Breitner was the one to gamble and to drink hard until, let's say, 3 or 4 in the morning. But at 9 o'clock, he was the first one on the training field and running in front of all the other ones. He had some work ethics, he always had. But the thing was, his behavior off the pitch was not professional.
Yeah. And especially the young players, the subs, they like joined like Eike Immel and so on. Yeah, like was he second or third goalkeeper?
Second goalkeeper, yeah.
I think number 3 was Bernd Franke.
Yes,
yes, he was.
Yeah. I think Immel lost tremendous amounts of money while gambling and card playing. He was young, he was inexperienced, and Toni Schumacher later said he didn't join these alcohol and gambling sessions because he said he was always focused on his physical fitness. And he was wondering, but no one dared to confront Breitner with the situation. He did what he wanted to do.
Makes sense.
So,
yeah.
And therefore, coming back to the question, I think it was a relief for the team that Breitner left. But of course, now there was a vacuum and that had to be filled.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I think Rummenigge was only because he was by far the most, maybe the most skilled player of the team. And like a superstar, basically, maybe the only superstar in the team. He was a leader, but in his mind, he wasn't that bossy. I think he didn't really want to lead like Breitner wanted to.
Are you sure about that? I think he wasn't that extrovert like Breitner was.
Yeah,
I think
there's
inside
something
the
about it.
team it might have been different.
Yeah, but he had problems in 1986 then, yeah, as a leader because he
Because
was
he was injured
again.
at the time.
And
86 he was injured mostly.
I know, yeah, but in 1982 he was injured too, yeah.
Only in the France game. All the other games he was a starter.
In 1982?
Yeah.
Well, he was
a
carrying
starter
an
in all
not against France. Not against
not
France.
against France.
Well, he was carrying an injury. And in fact, later Uli Stielike criticized him for not being honest about the extent of his injury during the
Okay.
World Cup. Yeah. But many German players, especially as you mentioned before, Harald Schumacher, they had received much international scorn due to their behavior during this 1982 World Cup. How were they viewed within German football circles?
Again, the press played a big role. Like decades later, Schumacher maybe not confessed, but in an interview he said what the way he behaved during this infamous game against France. He explained why he did what he did, like not approaching Battiston after the clash, basically, not approaching him because he didn't want to pour like oil into the fire because he thought that would create a brawl with the other French players. And then the German press said, okay, no, now after the match, Schumacher offered to pay the false teeth for Battiston. And that was all brought the image of Toni Schumacher down.
Yeah, exactly.
The press worked on it, and Toni Schumacher admitted that the whole situation was all too much, that he was hiding behind the goal after the incident. Nowadays, Battiston and Schumacher are fine. And even Battiston, when he's asked about this match, he said, let's forget about it. It's over, like for 40 years now. So they are through with it. So, but nobody else is seemingly.
Before each big game between Germany and France, the French press will show the pictures of the night of Sevilla.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But back then, Schumacher's image was as bad as can be. He was the villain of international soccer and of German soccer as well.
Yeah. I still think he didn't deserve it. No.
Back then, he didn't have an agent to.
Yeah, that's it.
As young players have today, he didn't have an agent to tell him how to behave. Yeah.
And still, how bad was this referee after this foul not to send Schumacher off?
Send him off, yes.
Well, Joop Derval had bigger problems because players such as Karl Algover and especially Felix Magath, they refused to be selected while Derval was in charge. Can you discuss these players' angers directed to Derval?
To be honest, Algover never played a crucial role in the national team. I don't think that he was in the position to tell anybody what to do.
He felt probably he deserved more of a chance, maybe, as far as Algover, I think.
But I think we come back to the point before. Derval was too soft on especially certain players. Not everybody was okay with his decisions, so they started talking to the press, telling the press what they thought, didn't do it internally, and that was the problem.
Yeah, Magath was especially angry for being dropped for the final. And he would not play for Derval. I mean, he would return only for when Beckenbauer came back.
Is it kindergarten? So when the coach decides, no, you're not playing, that's his decision. Yeah. Not the players making the decision. So that was just kindergarten and not professional at all. And later in his career, especially as a coach, Magath was always stating, oh, no, we are all professionals and so on. No, I'm of the same opinion. Algover never played a role in the German national team. You might have been a leader at VfB Stuttgart, but in the German national team, I don't know. Algover, how many caps did he have at the end of his career? 3, 4, 2?
He was in the 86 squad, but didn't play. About Magath, 4 years later, he was also insulted when he was substituted in the final against Argentina for Tito Hoeneß, which was the last game of his career. And he was insulted there too. So Algover had 10 caps between 1980 and 86. 10 caps in 6 years, not scoring any goal.
Not any goals. And then would be interesting to know how many minutes he played. He was in the national team. He was always a sub, nothing else. Yeah. I don't want to bring him down as a player. He might have been a good player,
He played a crucial role for Stuttgart to win the Bundesliga in '84, but it's different on the national level.
International, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what I think. Still, Magath wasn't a leader, at least not in the national team, maybe at HSV, but he wasn't a leader in the national team. So this loss of Magath for the next 4 years was acceptable. No one really was missing him, to be honest.
At that time, nobody did. I remember my dad. My dad was really an expert on the game. When it came to Magath, he always shook his head.
He wasn't popular at all.
The season starts with a friendly on September 22nd against Belgium at Munich at Olympiastadion. For this match, we have the following lineup. And as you mentioned, this is a very good Belgian side with the new Bayern Munich goalkeeper Jean-Marie Pfaff and the likes of Eric Gerrits, Frankie Verkauteren, and Ludo Queck and Jan Sulemans, among others. For West Germany, we have Harald Schumacher of Köln in goal, Wolfgang Dremmler of Bayern Munich, Wilfried Hennes of Borussia Mönchengladbach. This was his 8th and final cap for West Germany. His first cap had been 1981. Karl-Heinz Forster of Stuttgart, Bernd Forster of Stuttgart, Hansi Müller, having now joined Inter Milan in Italy. He'd be replaced by Jürgen Milewski of Hamburg in the 46th minute. Lothar Matthäus of Borussia Mönchengladbach, Uli Stielike of Real Madrid in Spain, Hans-Peter Brigel of Kaiserslautern, Pierre Littbarski of Köln, and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, captain of a team of Bayern Munich. Speaking of Algover, Derval had intended to select him for this match, but Algover refused his request. Magath also, Felix Magath. This match ended as a scoreless tie, the first match without Breitner. There would be another friendly in October. On October 13th, they faced England at Wembley. Germany wearing green, facing England, now managed by Bobby Robson and containing the likes of Peter Shilton, Terry Butcher, Ray Wilkins captaining the team on that day, among others. And remember, they had met just 5 months earlier during the World Cup. That ended a scoreless tie. For this match, we have the following lineup. Schumacher, Manfred Kaltz of Hamburg, international debutant Gerhard Strack of FC Köln, Karl-Heinz Forster. He'd be replaced by Holger Hieronymus of Hamburg in the 5th minute after he was injured. And for Hieronymus, this was his 3rd and final cap. His first cap had been in 1981. Then you have Bernd Forster, international debutant Norbert Meyer of Werder Bremen. He'd be replaced by Pierre Littbarski in the 69th minute. Dremmler, Brigel, Matthäus, Rummenigge, Klaus Allofs of FC Köln, and he'd be replaced by Stefan Engels of FC Köln in the 89th minute. West Germany would take the lead through Karl-Heinz Rummenigge in the 72nd minute when he chipped over Shilton after a combination play with Littbarski. In the 83rd minute, Littbarski crossed from the left side and Rummenigge struck in his cross. A couple of minutes later, in the 85th minute, Tony Woodcock, the former Köln player, scored for England. West Germany became the first continental team to win twice against England at Wembley. And we should mention that Karl Algover once again refused an invite.
I can remember Schumacher, his performance was world-class this night. Basically, he secured the German win. And Rummenigge was shining.
I don't remember seeing the game, but I think this game caused an English couple named Alan and Denise to write a song about Karl-Heinz Rummenigge.
What a man, Rummenigge.
I'm a fan.
Yeah. This time, the Rummenigge was Europeans' best striker.
He was European Player of the Year twice in 80 and 81, and in 82 he hadn't lost any of his sharpness. Winning in England for Germany is always special. The first victory in Wembley in 72 is one of the myths of German football.
Mm.
And until today, beating England at Wembley is something very special for Germany. If you're on the second team to make it in a friendly, okay, you're not to become a myth, but that's an achievement that gave, as far as I can remember, it gave a sort of hope for the following qualification matches for the European Championship. But we all know what was to follow then.
The first qualification match for the 1984 Euros. And let's just mention, West Germany were in a group with Austria again. They've been paired with them in the 82 World Cup qualifiers and also 1982 World Cup group phase. So once again, they were in a group with Austria, as well as Northern Ireland, Turkey, and Albania. On November 17th, West Germany traveled to Belfast to face Northern Ireland, who had a surprisingly good World Cup in Spain. You have the likes of Martin O'Neill, Billy Hamilton, the teenager Norman Whiteside of Manchester United. So a team that was on the rise. For this match for West Germany, you have Schumacher, Kaltz, Stielicke, Strack, Bernd Forster, Matthias. He'd be replaced by Engels in the 72nd minute. Bernd Schuster of Barcelona in Spain. This was his first match with the national team in 18 months. He'd be replaced by international debutant Rudi Völler of Werder Bremen in the 72nd minute, who would become a legend of German football. Brigel, Litbarski, Klaus Allofs, and Rummenigge. We have to mention that Karl-Heinz Forster was out injured. Wolfgang Dremmler was overlooked for this match because he had been sent off in a Bundesliga match ahead of this match. This was a match where, surprisingly, West Germany lost. The Northern Ireland scored in the 18th minute through Ian Stewart. The qualification campaign started in the worst possible way. Though against a good team, everyone would have expected Germany to come away with a result. And I guess the takeaway in terms of German football history is that Rudi Völler made his debut in this match. What was the status of Rudi Völler at this point in German football?
I think he played his first season in the Bundesliga, in the first Bundesliga. And he was coming from 1860 Munich, as far as I can remember, and he was shining in the second Bundesliga with a great ratio of matches and goals.
He was top scorer.
He was a top scorer, a scoring machine, basically. Then he was playing his first season for Werder. And at the end of the season, I think he was the top scorer. As far as I can remember, he was the top scorer at the end with 20-something goals, 26, maybe 24. And as a rookie, basically. Nobody could expect him to have such a great career.
Yeah, he was a shy young guy from the city of Hanau who had played for the traditional team of Offenbacher Kickers before going to 1860 Munich in the second Bundesliga. But what was to become of him wasn't definitely not apparently at the game in Belfast.
This was Joop Derwaal's first ever loss in a qualifier. Did this add to the pressure on him as far as the press?
Yeah, definitely.
After the victory in England, there was a sort of hope. That doesn't mean that the months before had been forgotten. And after this loss to Northern Ireland, the mood was the same as after nearly the Algeria match. The qualification for the European Championship was in peril.
The achievement at Wembley was instantly forgotten.
Exactly. But what I said before, Schuster never played again after the Brazil game, so I was wrong on that. I'm sorry.
The same season he played later against Austria, I think I can remember. He came back for like 2 or 3 matches.
Speaking of Schuster, obviously he's a controversial figure of German football despite his great talent. And this match was his return. So how was his situation with the national team at this point?
In these times, it was like when it was a star, when he played in other European leagues, like in Spain or Italy. they simply somehow disappeared. So for the fans, it was hard to get any information. There was no internet, and the German press didn't really offer information about the matches, about how they performed and so on. So when they were out of sight, that was it.
The situation was completely different from today. You had restrictions on how many foreign players were allowed to play in the team. As Torge says, no internet, hardly any television coverage of international games. And what's also forgotten, only after 1984, Italy opened its boundaries for international players again. After the 1966 World Cup, the Italian Federation had banned international players from their league. Only those that had been there were allowed to keep on playing, like, for example, Helmut Haller. But no new players from other countries were allowed to get into the Italian league. Thus, they wanted to protect their national team. On the other hand, you had this very strange nationalistic view that players playing abroad, that was treated like, they were nearly treated like traitors. If you go to another country, Germany is not good enough for you, just go. It was also kind of politics to have such players in the national team. Best example was Franz Beckenbauer, who the German Association was too proud of to get him back into the team for the 1978 World Cup because of his spell at New York Cosmos.
Wasn't it the same with Netzer and Breitner when they left for Real Madrid?
Netzer he had gone to Madrid in 73. He was on the squad for the 74 World Cup because he was too good and his name was too big to drop him. But Breitner
he left after the 74 World Cup, I believe.
He left after the 74 World Cup. I don't know what it was that he didn't play anymore.
They had a falling out with Helmut Schön, both of them.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Breitner was capped only 48 times for Germany, which is, if you consider the span of his career, is not very much.
No.
Yeah, because from 75 till 81, he was out of the national team.
He was out of the team,
yeah. But then coming back to Bernd Schuster, I think it was the case that Barcelona didn't release him for the matches for the national team. So when Barcelona said, no, we need you here in the league and you cannot go away for 3 days, he had to accept it because they paid him very well. And their rules were quite strict. They said, listen, you cannot go for matches. At the same time, it was good for Spain somehow because they were like rivalries. And that was another reason. And I think he was managed by his wife.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very big point.
She couldn't cope with Neuberger from the DFB and so on. So
and the press.
It's tragic because I think he was the most skilled German midfielder of the 80s. He was even better than Matthäus, definitely. He was a superstar, but he was flying under the radar because he was in Spain.
What you said about him and Matthäus, they were completely different sort of players. Matthäus always came from his physics, and Schuster had this incredible technique. He was able to send you the ball from 70 meters right onto your ankle. So just imagine a German team at the 86 World Cup with a midfield consisting of Schuster and Matthäus. Just imagine such a team.
Yeah.
What's always forgotten, he played together with Maradona at Barcelona, and Maradona looked up to him.
Yeah. And Schuster was still young in 1982 when Maradona played at Barcelona, for Barcelona. He definitely had the touch. He returned and he played for all the 3 big clubs in Spain, like Real, Atletico and Barcelona. And then in the fall of his career, he came back to the Bundesliga.
Oh, in Leverkusen,
And he still he had the touch and his kicking was great. And he was a bit slow, but he was 30-something. There you only realized what the Bundesliga or the German national team missed for a decade or more.
Exactly.
And as you said, Schuster was a classical playmaker. Matthäus was more originally he was more like a defensive midfielder. Only in 1990 he was like interpreting his role quite.
Let's make it to the point. Matthäus was a motor, and Schuster was a driver.
Or the brain.
Yeah.
The brain. Yeah.
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 hard to compare the both of them. They're completely different players, but if you make an addition with one to the other, you would have had a great result.
Yeah.
We come to the year 1983, and West Germany starts the year with a friendly at Portugal at Lisbon. This was also a Portuguese side that would qualify for next year's Euros. They were an improving side as well. For this match, we have the following lineup: Schumacher, Kalt. This was Manfred Kalt's 69th and final cap for West Germany. His first cap had been 1975. Bernd Forster, Karl-Heinz Forster, Briegel, Dremler, international debutant Wolfgang Rolf of Hamburg. Matthias, he'd be replaced by international debutant Johnny Otten of Werder Bremen in the 46th minute. Rummenigge, Feller, he'd be replaced by Meyer in the 65th minute, Litbarski, and he'd be replaced by Klaus Allofs in the 81st minute. In this poor match for Germany, they would lose 1-0. Dito scored in the 57th minute in a forgettable match for Germany. As far as Kaltz, was he not selected after this because of his age, or were there other reasons? Because I know he played for many, many years after this for Hamburg.
And he still was about to win the, nowadays it would be Champions League. So yeah, I cannot remember. Was he, I don't know. Was he too old already? But his national career, so his Bundesliga career went on.
To be honest, this is one of the games that I have deleted from my mind. I don't remember having seen, but it fits into the picture because 1 year later, Germany was to play Portugal at the first game at the European Championship. In France, it was a 0-0 tie, which was nearly regarded a success then, not losing against this aspiring side of Portugal. They had players like Chalana.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. Yeah.
But what was about Kaltz? He was to me, it seems like he was just wiped off. Why? I can't tell you.
I was thinking about it, but who replaced him then? Hearing names like, I don't know, Johnny Otten. He was Werder Bremen, yeah, but he didn't deserve to play in the national team.
I mean, this says a lot about the state of German football.
Yeah, and then most probably Derval was trying out, and he was thinking about who can I try to get in and who is ready to play for us. But the whole team, there was no real midfielder, no playmaker. Litbarski maybe, yeah, but maybe 3 or 4 technically skilled players, and the rest were like football workers. Rolf, Otten, the Förster brothers. I mean, Karl-Heinz was world class. Bernd was only in the national team because his brother. That's more like a rumor, but everybody said, what is Bernd Förster doing in the national team? Strack from Köln. What did he do there in the national team?
Well, he scored one important goal.
Oh, yes.
I know,
Albania,
yeah. Against Albania.
Yeah. About Manfred Kaltz, I've just had a look on his Wikipedia. And there they say that he had personal problems with Derval and didn't agree with him on the tactics. That sounds pretty understandable to me. One figure you mustn't forget, Derval's assistant coach was Erich Ribbeck.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
Ribbeck later was characterized by many of his players as a guy with no idea of tactics.
Yeah, he's known as the worst German national coach ever. Like when did
At the end of the 90s?
98
2000,
2000
European.
Yeah. After Bertie Vogts, yeah.
I think there was not too much competence on the leadership in the national team then.
He did win the UEFA Cup, though, with Leverkusen.
Was it because of him or, well, with him?
Yeah. I mean, he was later coach of Bayern Munich too. Huh?
Oh, he didn't win anything with him. He came to save a horrible season in 92 and was sacked at the beginning of 94 for being second in the Bundesliga. He was replaced by Beckenbauer, and so, of course, Bayern won the Bundesliga after that. No, honestly, if you consider the span of his career, he had been working in the Bundesliga for, I think, 3 decades. He didn't win very much.
No, definitely not. Overrated, completely overrated nowadays.
Mm-hmm. A gentleman, but not the top coach.
A gentleman, and no player ever was like mentioning him as a good coach.
Yeah.
We come to the springtime and the more European qualifiers. On March 30th, they travel to Tirana to face Albania. For this match, we have Schumacher, Bernd Forster, Strack, Karl-Heinz Forster, Atten, Engels, Hansi Müller, Brigel, Rummenigge, Feller. He'd be replaced by Meyer in the 86th minute and Litbarski. And for this match, Derval could not call upon Rolf, Milewski, Hieronymus, Matthäus, and Dremler, who were all injured. And Schuster and Stilicke were not released by Barcelona and Real Madrid. In this match, in the 54th minute, Rudi Feller scores his first goal for West Germany with a tap-in. In the 67th minute, Engels was fouled in the box and Rummenigge scored from the penalty kick. And Albania were also awarded a penalty kick in the 81st minute when Strack handled in the box and Muheddin Targaj scored from a penalty spot. West Germany just did the minimum away from home at Albania, who they were expected to defeat. Next, on April 23rd, they traveled to Izmir at Turkey. For this match, we have Schumacher, Dremler, Strack, Karl-Heinz Forster, Brigel, Engels, Schuster, Hansi Müller, Litbarski. He'll be replaced by Rolf in the 76th minute, Feller, and Rummenigge. West Germany wins this match 3-0. In the 31st minute, Feller is fouled in the box and Rummenigge scores from a penalty kick. In the 35th minute, Dremler scores a second. And in the 71st minute, Rummenigge heads in the third goal. An important away win for West Germany. So the qualification campaign is back on track. A few days later, they have a tougher test against rivals Austria at Vienna at Prater Stadion. This Austrian side, a lot of familiar faces, Concilia, Frankfurt's Bruno Petzai, and future Werder Bremen player, the late Bruno Petzai, Heribert Weber, Herbert Prohaska, and Hansi Krankel, of course, and Walter Schachner. So this is Austria's golden team who had qualified from the 78 and 82 World Cup tournaments. For this match, Germany wearing green. We have Schumacher, Dremler, Strack, Karl-Heinz Forster, Brigel. He'd be replaced by Bernd Forster in the 38th minute. Stefan Engels. This would be his 8th and final cap. His first cap had been in 1982. Then you got Bernd Schuster, Hansi Müller. He'd be replaced by Rolf in the 75th minute, Litbarski, Feller, and Rummenigge. Incidentally, Rummenigge scored a goal in the 69th minute that was called off for offside. However, after the match, Rummenigge claimed that even some of the Austrian players told him that he had scored a valid goal. What was the takeaway as far as Germany's qualification chances?
They were still there, but it was a way to go. The qualification groups from the name didn't seem too difficult, but I mean, you can at that time a 0-0 at Austria was okay. But considering the loss to Northern Ireland, everybody saw, okay, we have some way to go and we're not top of the world this time. And Derval definitely had to fight.
I can remember watching this match, and Germany was way better than Austria. So a win would have been deserved. Everybody was quite ecstatic because Bernd Schuster was coming back and he played well together with Rummenigge. So although it was only a draw, after the match, there was hope. I can remember this.
Hope. I mean, the chances were still there, but everybody knew we have some way to go. There were
Of course,
play matches.
We weren't
they were still to play matches against home matches, which gave lots of hope, of course, against Turkey, against
Northern Ireland,
and Austria and Albania. Back then, I remember Germany always managed to have the away games in the qualification rounds first. And then there were the home games. And Torge, you're absolutely right. The trust into the national team was not that big at the time, although there was hope.
Football is a daily business. So one match, one game can change it all and can change the hope of the fans and how the fans react and what they expect. And that was one of the better games that I can remember.
0-0 at Vienna at the time was not too bad.
Germany was way better.
I also remember the offside goal,
Regarding these matches in April, it seems like most of the players had been opposed to the inclusion of Bernd Schuster into the squad. Joop Derval and the DFB president Herman Neuberger had insisted that he should be integrated in the team. Do you remember this controversy?
I only remember that there was always a kind of controversy what to do with Schuster, but I thought it was always the association that wanted to have him off because they didn't like his approach on how he was to be handled, how his wife was to be handled. He was widely regarded as by the press and I think by the association as a factor of
as a diva.
A diva,
yeah.
He was the one to bring in a kind of turmoil. The word diva is pretty correct, But I don't remember the team to be against him. I think it was more the association.
Why would the team be against him? I mean, they knew he was one of the best football players Germany had.
Perhaps he was very temperamental in his behavior within the team, maybe, or maybe because he hadn't really been part of the team because he was always in and out at Barcelona. Maybe that's why they felt management was too indulgent with him, perhaps.
Honestly, I don't know.
After this, we come to the end of the season. SV Hamburg just narrowly edges ahead of Werder Bremen for the Bundesliga title. And they also win the Champions Cup against Juventus with that famous Felix Magath goal. So there was some happy news for German football at the end of the season. But there was one last friendly. This friendly was a gala event to celebrate the Luxembourg Association's 75th anniversary. And they invited West Germany and Yugoslavia for the celebration. So on June 7th at Luxembourg, West Germany faced off against Yugoslavian side that included the likes of both Vujovic twins, Zlatko and Zoran, Zlatko Kranjčar, Faruk Hadzibejic. For this match, we have starting in goal Dieter Burdenski of Werder Bremen. He had not played for the national team in many years. He'd be replaced by international debutant, the controversial Uli Stein of SV Hamburg in the 46th minute. You have Bernd Forster. He'd be replaced by Johnny Otten in the 46th minute. Stielicke, Karl-Heinz Forster, Brigel, Rolf, Schuster, Hansi Müller. He'd be replaced by international debutant Herbert Vass of Bayer Leverkusen in the 67th minute. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Feller, Meyer, and he'd be replaced by Matthäus in the 46th minute. Norbert Meyer scores his two first goals for Germany in the 13th minute and the 20th minute with a long-range shot. Yugoslavia pulls a goal back through Miodrag Jezic in the 62nd minute. But then in the 79th minute, Bernd Schuster scores Germany's third goal with a volley after Feller had crossed from the left side. A minute later, Goran Miljanovic scores with a header for Yugoslavia. And before the end, in the 87th minute, German substitute Herbert Vass passed to Rummenigge on the right side, who advanced to score Germany's fourth goal. And Germany wins this match 4-2, and the season's over. On the balance, how would you look upon the performances of this season?
First of all, you know that Budensky has passed away only a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, oh, that's right. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
To put it in a nutshell, a year to be forgotten. A year without any highlights. Some disappointments like the losses to Northern Ireland and Portugal. A year that showed very much the problems of German football at this time, with a leadership that was only touring around themselves, with a coach that wasn't capable of managing his challenges. And a year that led the path to the disaster of the '84 European Championship. Simple as it is. As Torge said, there were players in the squad you wondered what they were doing there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like again, Johnny Otten, even Engels. What did he do in the national team?
Whatever have the Romans done for us?
Yeah, and Hieronymus, by the way, he was a tragic figure. He was one of the biggest talents in German football. Like everybody said, he's the new Beckenbauer, but I think he had to quit his career due to injuries when he was only like 23, I think. I don't know.
He had a bad injury, that's true.
Yeah, and he was very young and very talented, and that's tragic. Could have been a great career, international career, but then other names. In this season, HSV and Werder were the two best teams. And then, of course, the national coach picks up players from those two best performing teams. And therefore, all of a sudden, Johnny Otten, Norbert Meyer, who was a skillful player, but not really on an international level, I'd say. And then Budensky. And that's the reason why they all of a sudden were part of the national team, because Werder was playing so well.
Werder Bremen were, at that time, they had been promoted to the Bundesliga only the year before.
Yeah,
but they were on a very steep path forward, Yeah,
and I think they finished second in the league this season, as far as I can remember.
Yeah, they finished second on goal difference.
On goal difference. Yeah. And Völler, of course, was not only Völler, the whole team. They played like a team, and Otto Rehagel did a fantastic job as a coach. But then there was Hamburg, and because they performed so well, players like Hieronymus and
Milevski.
Then Milevski. Yeah, Milevski is not.
They had a great goalkeeper. Uli Stein was a fantastic goalkeeper.
Definitely. They're better than Budensky, maybe even better than Toni Schumacher.
Yeah, we know what happened in '86.
Yeah.
Difficult guy, but a great player.
But I imagine the introduction of Rudi Völler into the German national team setup was the most significant news in historical terms, perhaps.
Yeah, we know 8 years later he was World Cup champion. What else can you achieve? He was one of the top players of German football. Roma paid lots of money to get him, to sign him. It was very clear that he was the coming star. I mean, if you think of the championship in France 1 year later, Germany really performed very poorly. They only scored 2 goals in 3 matches. Who scored those goals? It was Rudi Völler.
It was obvious now that the team was underachieving, even with players like Otten and Milevski and so on. With the different coach, they should have won against teams like Albania, and they were underachieving.
And someone like Lothar Matthäus still doesn't have the same influence that he would have, let's say, post-'86 era.
I think '86 is the crucial year of is the point of his career where he started, when his ambitions became reality. Before that, he only scored his first international goal in '85.
Yes, against Czechoslovakia, that's right.
Yeah. So back at the time, he was one of many, talented player, but with lots of ambitions, but not always with achieving and performing the way he thought he could.
There was one incident in 1986 that changed the role within the team. That was against Morocco.
Yeah.
Was it in the extra time? I can't remember when.
It was in injury time. It was,
when he
I think,
scored
the
with a free
93rd
kick,
minute when
yeah.
he scored a free kick from 30 meters.
Yeah, and basically Rummenigge wanted to take over the kick, and then just Matthäus grabbed the ball and said, "No, I'm doing it." And I mean, Rummenigge was the captain of the team, and a young Lothar Matthäus was changing of the guard somehow, yeah. And he was like, now I'm a young leader, and I say no.
I mean, if you talk about 86, in the first game, Matthäus had made a horrible mistake against Uruguay with a pass that Uruguay made the 1-0 of. He had to pay back, and that he did against Morocco. And from that moment on, it was pretty obvious that he was the coming number one in the team.
Only when he left the Bundesliga and went to Italy, he became an internationally regarded star, superstar. Had he stayed in the Bundesliga, no, he wouldn't have become such a star.
That was the golden age of Italian soccer when they signed all the top players in the world. In 89, he won the Serie A with Inter Milan. In 1990, he became World Cup winner, and in 1991, he won the UEFA Cup. So things he couldn't have achieved. The winning the Bundesliga didn't have the same level as winning the Serie A back.
Yeah, it was definitely the best league in the world at this time, the Italian league, and it boosted the performance of the German players there. Let it be Matthäus, let it be Brehme, let it be Klinsmann, later Völler.
We wouldn't have expected this to happen in 83.
So on balance, it seems like they did the minimum in some of the qualifiers. Nothing too impressive, but they're still in the hunt for the qualification spot. But not a very impressive season overall.
No.
Not at all.
In closing, 1 year after the World Cup, what was Joop Derval's position with the press and the public?
Weaker than ever.
The German Association never had a tradition of sacking their coaches, but everybody expected Derval to leave as soon as possible. Yeah. And it was pretty obvious that he wouldn't survive a poor 84 European Championship. He won his first tournament, but after that, it all went down. Sorry to say so.
Yeah, the 1982 World Cup broke something within this squad. With that, I would like to thank both of you for your participation in this interview, and our contact information is listed on the blog and podcast uploads. So thanks to both of you, and hope to continue these discussions on German football history.
My pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you as well.
Thank you.